Hi. So here is part 2 of the Retractions, where I'll be talking about Eastern Orthodoxy. Now, I'm unaware if I actually made any particular comments about joining the Eastern Church, but for a while it was a temptation because I had a lot of childhood memories of things associated with the Eastern Church, particularly the Greek and Russian Orthodox churches. And so there was quite a draw there for me besides the internet. But I ultimately settled on Roman Catholicism because I'm convinced that Roman Catholicism is true and that Eastern Orthodoxy is false. Now, why is this? Now, I'm not going to articulate the patristic witness here. Other people have done that far more than me. I'm not going to articulate too much the details of the scriptures. I think that the scriptures very, very strongly side with the Petrine case. I mean, just like, I shall declare to the Gentiles with my mouth, or to paraphrase Acts 15. But the real reason I ultimately went for Roman Catholicism is that it seemed to me inconceivable that a God of reason, who understands human beings, that they are fallen, would somehow create a church that didn't have some sort of way of, first of all, unifying it, and second of all, making clear the teaching beyond things like councils being accepted by the plurality of the faithful. So let's deal with the first part. So for example, let's take the current schism with the Eastern Orthodox. I know this is probably an uncharitable way of starting, but I think this is the way that makes the most sense. So we have the Patriarchate of Moscow and the Ecumenical Patriarchate in schism currently. Now, we are faced with an issue here. Which one is the true church? If there's one church, as I'm sure the Orthodox agree, then how can we choose between these two churches? There's no real way of doing so. Now, the Orthodox response is to say that, well, the Roman Catholics had a similar thing in the 14th century with the Great Schism, where we had 3 popes at once. But the difference was then is that there were multiple persons fighting over the same throne. Everyone agreed on the particular church which the throne was a part of. Everyone still agreed on Rome. It was just the person that was doing it. And we were able to resolve that through a disciplinary decree at the Council of Constance. The Orthodox don't have such a thing because there are different thrones there. So you can't really resolve this problem as easily as you can with the Roman Church. Everyone still agrees that the See of Unity is Rome, whereas the issue with Orthodoxy is that you can't actually even find a See of Unity. So this is the first problem. I can't actually locate where the Orthodox Church actually is. The second problem is that it is difficult to actually find definitive teachings with the Orthodox Church. So, of course, you have the ecumenical councils of the eras of the fathers up until maybe 1054, and not all of them, to be honest. You have the Quintus Ext, for example, that isn't accepted by the West. You have these, but on what means do you actually accept them, first of all? So is this on the basis of Rome? Well, of course not for the East. We would accept it because the Pope accepts it. But the Orthodox are kind of caught in a position of, well, why do you accept these? Is it because of the emperor? You haven't had an emperor for 550 years, nearly 600 years. So you've had a extremely important part of the church missing for 600 years. Is this not similar to how the Jews are missing their temple, and therefore they can't ordain priests, and therefore they can't carry out their sacrifices, as are prescribed in the books of Leviticus and elsewhere? The second part is, well, maybe we treat the Ecumenical Patriarch as the replacement for Rome because Canon 28 of Chalcedon says that Constantinople is second to Rome. Well, the question of this is, first of all, Rome doesn't accept that, and you remained in communion with Rome for hundreds of years after this, notwithstanding the Onian Schism and the Phocian Schism. And they never held this. So either you were in communion with heretics who denied an ecumenical council, which causes problems, or it isn't a valid canon. So I don't think that quite works. The third way is to just say, well, there's the faithful and they know instinctually through their faith what is true and what isn't. And the fact that the faithful have accepted the ecumenical councils shows that they are true. So there are a number of problems with this. The first one is that this is assuming that the mass of the faithful actually know the ecumenical councils, which I think is a stretch, to put it mildly. And how can someone affirm an article of faith they don't know? Now, this is different from possessing faith itself. Of course, many people possess faith who don't know what an ecumenical council even is. Right? You could probably have small children with faith who don't know what an ecumenical council even is. You'll have adults who might have a vague idea, but they don't know what they contain. Right? So in what sense can we say that the possession of faith reflects the truth of an article of faith? I don't think that we can. I think we can say that we can derive articles of faith from the scriptures that are to be believed by possessing faith, but that doesn't mean that the mere possession of faith entails believing any particular article of faith. That's the first problem. The second problem is that this could be used by anybody. This could be used by Seventh-day Adventists. This could be used by Mormons. This could be used by any sect, by Hindus even, and say, oh, well, because our community believes it, therefore it must be true. But that fails, right? We would say, of course, that the Hindus are in error. We would say that the Seventh-day Adventists are in error. And we would say that the Mormons are in error. So to say, oh, simply because the faithful believe a particular thing makes it true, doesn't suffice for itself. There has to be something prior to this in order to make this true. Now, with Rome, we don't have this issue. With Rome, we can say that the Pope has affirmed something on faith and morals that's infallible, and we have the support of the scriptures and of the fathers on this issue. I'd say that it follows quite naturally from St. Irenaeus, who says that churches must agree with Rome insofar as they're churches, that the head of the church of Rome teaching something particular means that the other churches must follow along. Well, I think it follows quite naturally from Peter being the rock and his manifest ability to have successors. I think that we have a basis there, at the very least, whereas I don't think that Orthodoxy does. And if I'm wrong, by all means, tell me in the comments. So, this was kind of a rant. This was me thinking in a freezing cold room at 9 in the morning in the middle of December. So this isn't some well-researched video. The reason that I did this is because I was reading a homily from St. Alphonsus Liguori that said that you should issue retractions for the sake of things that you have done wrong in the past. And yes, that was my hand hitting the desk. And so I'm making videos, at least 2 of them, about these things that I've stated in the past that are false, to articulate my retractions and why I'm retracting. Thanks for watching.